Hello, welcome to the final Expertise Leadership Tech Talk of 2023. I'm Richard Harris, Managing Director of Expertise Recruitment, and delighted to have Alex Richards with us today, CIO of Ibstock PLC. Thanks for joining us, Alex.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Merry Christmas, and I like your jumper.
Thank you. Yeah, keeping on brand with the Star Wars theme. We've got some people mistake this as a welding helmet behind me, but that's a Boba Fett helmet. Yeah.
Absolutely. So so Alex and I have known each other for a few years, and he's top man, and he's had a fantastic career. So Alex, let's just start off. What's been your biggest tech challenge for the past in the past year?
ERP. In three letters, it's a real challenge at most businesses, right? I think ERP is the crown jewels, generally one of the most complicated systems, generally the sort of system that, CIOs are desperate just to leave alone until it's absolutely necessary, I think. Our ERP system, there's such potential for us to modernize the way the business works and streamline some of the processes which have just got bloated through acquisition and years of fettling. But that's been the biggest concern really, is how we can enable the business to do things a little bit more smoothly. And our ERP is a little bit of a blocker as it stands now for that sort of thing. Just in terms of the discovery process that we're going to engage in, we started the discovery process this year. That will continue into next year, but it's mainly business side process mapping really. The tech is going to come later next year, I would imagine. So just working out how we can simplify and standardize ways of working across the group really to make it a lot more efficient. But yeah, it's a headache, right? Because every single system we've got in some way is going to interface with that ERP system. And because it's been in for 25 odd years now, some parts of it are probably quite delicate. And, we've got some subject matter experts that are on hand to babysit that in case things don't go as planned. But yeah, that's been a big headache this year.
Which ERP system have you got?
It's Oracle JD Edwards in at the minute. That's the predominant one. A couple of the businesses we've acquired over the last year have got smaller ERP systems, and the plan would be to onboard them onto JD Edwards. But it's a great system, obviously predominantly designed for manufacturing businesses like ours. But we've got a lot of custom modifications on there that have built up over the last 20 years. So it's going to be a real challenge to try and de-modify the system and move back to a more vanilla state, which is probably our preferred option.
And do you think the investment case is going to be the biggest challenge around getting that through?
Really tough. It's really tough. Obviously, ERP programs tend to be quite expensive. They need a fair bit of investment to get off the ground. Generally, we're going to have to lean on third-party consultancies to come and ride to the rescue a little bit on some of this stuff, just to get more arms and legs supporting the project. But the benefits we should see in terms of standardizing processes, there should be a huge revenue chunk that we can draw back down on, either from a cost saving or from additional revenue that we can generate using the same headcount. So hopefully the business case will be stacking up in the right order. But yeah, it's challenging its own right. Post-discovery phase, we'll have a really strong business case to take forward to the exec for consideration.
That's it. So what about key trends for the next couple of years? What do you see? What's the biggest enabler, do you think, for technology?
So I'm hearing a lot of AI conversations, right? And I think, it's a lot more accessible now via tools like ChatGPT than it has been. But the technology has been on the landscape for the last 4 or 5 years, and boardrooms are talking about it now. That's the big difference. I think AI will continue to be a big talking point. One of the big things that we've been working on this year and we'll continue to work on is around carbon accounting and sustainability reporting. So it's a huge problem. There's very little standardization in terms of how this data is collected and shared, where we're reporting on our own emissions, but also trying to get our suppliers to report on their emissions. It can be a bit of a mess. So we've been looking at implementing a carbon accounting platform that essentially collapses all that complexity down into a single view. So I think that'll be a challenge that continues for us into next year and beyond. And I imagine a lot of businesses in our industry and outside our industry are going to be facing similar sort of problems. But I just dream of a standardized data format that's going to be super easy for us all to follow.
Yeah, I was having lunch with the CIO recently, and he said if I could find a business that could build this for me, I would buy it. So I'm sure there's many others.
And I think, it's a common problem. This probably relates back to the ERP conversation as well. Most businesses think what they do is completely unique and that nobody else does things the same way they do. And that's probably true for about 10% of processes. But for manufacturers, we get an order, we make the product, we ship it, we get payment. That, in its simplest form, that's where we're at. From a carbon accounting perspective, it's very, very similar steps, right, to most of the manufacturers. So there should be a way of cutting through this really and simplifying it. But yeah, individual processes do make things more complicated.
And you sort of obviously touched on AI, obviously a hot topic. And what does that even mean? Is it even the right way of thinking? Maybe we start with the business problem first, and then you see how you use AI to solve it. But are there any sort of user cases you've identified that could add value?
Yeah, there are. So we're working with a company called PKI at the moment to look at automating and using artificial intelligence to drive our production forecasting. So we've been working with them for a couple of months now to try and map out the processes we use traditionally for predicting our production forecasts.
Yeah.
But this model takes in all sorts of different scenarios and all sorts of different market data and feeds in. And the idea should be hundreds of hours per month saved using this artificial intelligence model. And again, I'm a little bit biased here, I guess, but Peak have been around for years doing what they do. There's a lot of digital consultancies that have rebranded this year as AI consultancies with very little expertise and very few customer case studies. So I'm very picky about the AI conversations I have, and companies like Peak who've, like I said, they've got the real deep expertise. It's not a niche thing they've just sprung up this year. It just gives me a little bit more faith that they know what they're talking about. So seeing the wood for the trees on that front can be quite tough for AI because everyone's an AI expert now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really meaningful use case, and hopefully will really help us to move forward a lot faster than we might have done previously. And it's another process that we can tick off again and not need to worry about as part of the ERP process if we can get this model working the right way. So really exciting.
Fantastic. It's making me think I should change our company name to Expertise AI, Alex.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me. A lot of companies have gone that way, though. A lot of companies have gone that way.
And I guess on a related note, what sort of skills in terms of what you would need within your team do you think will be most in demand looking ahead of next year and beyond?
So I think the fundamental problem I see and hear from a lot of other businesses that I'm having conversations with is if your data is in a rubbish state, it doesn't really matter how good the artificial intelligence model is, it's going to struggle to pull the right data together. Yeah. So I think data engineering type roles, they've been in demand for the last 2 years in particular. I think data engineers and data scientists into next year are going to continue to be really key. It's a skill set, again, coming out of COVID, there was quite a few people had certified during the lockdowns as data scientists. In the same vein, 5 years ago, everyone was an agile coach. So again, I would be really focused on looking at CVs and trying to get some real life experiences from the candidates. But I would imagine the data roles are going to be a lot more important than the AI roles in next year.
Yeah, they've definitely stood up or held up in terms of demand more so than say some of the software engineering roles from the middle of this year onwards. So, and you've obviously touched upon a few points, but is there anything else sort of keeping you up at night that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, so I mean, at Ibstock, we're a British brand, potentially a good target for hackers. We'd be quite a big name, I guess. So cybersecurity is a key focus that keeps most of us awake at night, I imagine. We've got a really strong, essentially defences, proactive and reactive defences in place, and a really strong team that are looking after this. But ultimately, cybersecurity will always be something that is front of mind for me. We have had suppliers and customers that have had cybersecurity incidents this year, and we have helped out as much as we can to help bring these companies back around again.
Yeah.
We've got a really strong network within the construction industry of chief information security officers talking to each other to share intelligence and details. So for those that have been hacked, we've had some pretty good details on methods of entry and indicators of compromise, etc. So yeah, good network I think is helpful there. But yeah, that would be the thing that keeps me awake, if anything.
So yeah, again, common theme there. And if you had like an unlimited budget, obviously the dream of any CIO, where would you spend your money?
Yeah, this is a big question. And again, I think it's difficult to talk tech in isolation here, right? So I think from an ERP perspective, I would love a fresh greenfield ERP implementation where we could essentially take a small business unit and completely rewrite the whole thing from scratch. That would be, dream level stuff. Rather than having to move through all the complexity we've got now, literally starting afresh with what the perfect process would be and then scale that unit up from there. That would be the dream if I had unlimited budget and headcount.
Fantastic. And what would you put in Tech Room 101, where you could consign things you dislike, never to be seen again?
Again, I've touched on the charlatan AI experts, so maybe they'd be top of the list. One thing which I think is dying off a little bit now, and that's partly due to AI, I just hate the term digital transformation. I just hate it. It's meaningless. You know, if you look at the detail of the word in there, what you're saying is things are so bad that we need to completely rip up what we've got and start again. That's what we're talking about with the transformation. So I'm hearing that less now than I was kind of this time last year, but those two words will be chucked into the room 101 for me, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. I guess just last question around sort of maybe greatest challenge or success around sort of D&I and, you know, equality in diversity. You know, has that been an issue for you in terms of your team? And if so, like, you know, what could you share on that front?
A couple of bits, I guess. So I'm the executive sponsor for the Ibstock Disability Steering Group. So we've got a number of DEI groups across the business, and I sit as the chair for that one. And it's been great, really. And we've expanded the membership of that group to not just people who identify as having a disability, but to carers of people that have got disabilities as well. So it's been a really powerful group to come together, and particularly during some of the stressful times and the cost of living crisis this year's obviously, you know, pushed people to the edge, hasn't it? So that's been great. I think from a more practical perspective within tech, I hired for a head of data earlier this year, and I was really, really pushing to try and get an equal shortlist in terms of the gender of the candidates coming through, and trying to find a female head of data within a commutable distance of the office was almost impossible. It was almost impossible. It was so difficult to try and get things through.
Yeah.
So I think paying a bit more attention to the market intelligence, and I think the data I had back within like 30 minutes drive, I think there was 2 female heads of data, and I think there was 15 male heads of data. So I really want to try and push the agenda and make sure we're fairly shortlisted and we're being explicitly biased in some of the decisions we're making. But the practicalities of some of this stuff, when you've got the market intelligence behind that, just makes it, you know, a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it starts maybe from a younger age, doesn't it? If we're honest, and trying to create the flow up through.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Alex. And we could talk all day, and but you know, just to keep it prompt, and just wanted to finish up with I guess a lightning round of just to know Alex a little bit better. So, what's your favourite book?
My favourite book is Night Watch by Terry Pratchett.
Okay, very good. Android or iOS?
iOS all day. Not an Android fan in the slightest. Apple till I die.
I think we can probably tell looking at your background. Next question: Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars. Absolutely not interested in Star Trek. Star Wars is the one.
I love everything sci-fi. So, but yeah, good choice. Which radio station do you listen to if you do?
Tend to listen to Absolute Radio, actually, and that started at a company I used to work at about 10 years ago, where we had people in the office that would argue all day about the radio station, and Absolute was the one that most of us were happy to leave on in the background, so it's just gone on from there.
80s, 90s, or is it just
the main radio station that plays a bit of everything? Yeah.
Good stuff. Mindful Place?
Mindful Place, yeah, that's a tough one. Leicester Tigers. And that sounds completely mad, but being in the stadium on match day, completely forgetting about everything else in the world that's happening outside of the, you know, 30 blokes on the pitch. That's my mindful place.
Excellent. Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or X?
I like a bit of Instagram, I think. A little bit more accessible, not quite as deep, I guess. But yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Definitely coffee.
Mac or PC?
Mac. Again, Apple fanboy.
Book or ebook?
Ebook. Yeah, gone are the days of going on holiday with a suitcase full of heavy books. Yeah, definitely down for the e-reader.
Excellent. The last one, I think we know the answer to this. Favourite sports team?
Leicester Tigers. All day Leicester Tigers.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Alex, thanks for sharing a few minutes. I'm sure if anyone wants to reach out to Alex and collaborate, it'd be more than delighted, I'm sure, to do that. Just look him up on LinkedIn, I'm sure. Please send him a note, obviously, at the same time. But Alex, thanks so much for sparing a few minutes, and wish you all a great end to your year.
Pleasure talking to you. Thank you.